much, Colin. I appreciate you joining us here. For those of you that are just joining us for this session, my name is Tom Davis. As I mentioned previously, I'm a senior partner manager here at ShipBob, working with a lot of our platform partnerships, including our friends with the omnichannel solution Feedonomics. We're joined here today by Colin Madden. Colin's been kind of leading global sales teams for the last 6 years. Really big around building teams that strive for both excellence, not only in the business, but with customers as well, right? Feedonomics core values really center around is how do we build that team and prepare you to kind of drive that everyday value to not only help your team, but also as well your customers with this mindset that it's we instead of me, right? And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is optimizing for omni-channel components. Prior to Feedonomics, Colin was employed by ZipRecruiter, which is one of the world's leading job boards, and was working with his enterprise accounts, high-level agencies, and obviously helped build out teams there across the board. For y'all that are joining us as well, please don't forget to add your questions in the chat. We'll have time at the end for Colin to walk through them. And then as always, please join the BigCommerce booth after the session if you have additional questions, as Feedonomics was actually recently acquired by BigCommerce, which is very exciting. So Colin, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you and looking forward to learning more about omnichannel management.
Great. Thanks, Tom. And hello, everyone who's on. I see about 31 of you in the audience, so thanks for taking your time with us today. Like Tom said, my hope today is that I can give you a little sense of how to think about omnichannel management, how Feedonomics could potentially help with that. And of course, I will do my best to tailor this to a variety of different situations because we haven't had the chance to meet in person. I imagine there are a variety of backgrounds, setups, goals, and company sizes on this call. And of course, this is a ShipBob webinar, so I will do my best to relate this as well to how shipping and fulfillment plays into omnichannel management. So let's get started. First and foremost, I think hopefully this will be not new news to any of you on this call, but the world of just channel management in general has changed really dramatically, really since COVID, candidly. I mean, it was already moving in this direction, and COVID was just an accelerant on all of the trends we were already seeing. And that really is that digital advertising, marketplaces, and social commerce are all coming together because let's face it, Amazon won, right? Amazon's the largest company in the world. Their model of quick, easy, efficient, repeatable shopping is really appealing to customers. I mean, we probably all on this call use Amazon because it's the same experience. You know, you can return stuff easily and stuff generally gets to you now at just insane speed. I mean, we've all gotten used to 2-day shipping like it's easy. And so that's obviously really nice from an efficiency standpoint, but there's a whole other piece that Amazon is missing, which is the brand story and the kind of like the social aspect and the storytelling aspect of the products that we sell and the services that we buy. And that's what social commerce was really good at, right? And so historically, there was this kind of friction between marketplaces, which were like these cold static efficiency machines like Amazon and Walmart and eBay, and our beautiful websites that we'd poured, lots of time and money into that we ideally wanted to click redirect with channels like Google Shopping back to. So customers could go through our flow and we would capture them and be able to remarket them and build not just purchasers, but long-term advocates for our brand. And so those things are now merging where social commerce platforms like Meta and like TikTok are installing native checkout functionality so buyers can have that sort of Amazon-like experience on top of creators who can share this beautiful brand story. So you're kind of trying to get both now. And so this is the world now that we live in. COVID, of course, accelerated that because guess what everyone was doing during COVID? Obviously on folks that were staying healthy and weren't dealing with health crises and loved ones that were sick, they were buying stuff online. They were sitting at home and they were buying stuff online. So I think we all know that we've arrived at this location. So the second piece to this from a data perspective is really simply that retailers who are on more channels are finding more success. And that's happening because, again, consumers now are having similar thoughts, right? If I'm going to buy a set of 5 toothbrushes for my guest bathroom, I might go right to Amazon. But if I'm interested in buying maybe some sustainable clothing for the winter, I'm in Denver, Colorado, so it's snowing on the ground, hence my theme. But I might go shop around a little bit. I might want to go read about the brands that I'm going to buy from. Might want to know where their clothes are made, or maybe I want to compare prices across a bunch of different retailers. But I do care about the mission, or I want to see the teams, or I want to see what new products maybe some of my favorite brands have in store, right? So I am not in just one place as a consumer either. And so of course it makes sense that retailers that are selling their products across more channels are just doing better, and it's significant, right? 190%, 280, 87%. So they're big numbers, right? It's not small upticks here. So then, of course, that brings us to the lovely question of how the heck do we pull this off operationally? Because now I have this website that I've spent all this time on, or I have this data cloud. If you're a retailer that's got your stuff stored in Excel sheets or a PIM, how do I get my data out to all these channels efficiently? It's a hard problem. And a lot of merchants solve this with IT or a lot of grunt work in spreadsheets. And there are tools out there like Feedonomics that can help you do this really efficiently. And so that's where we come to what we would call feed management or marketplace integration management. So very briefly, just I think everyone probably knows this, but what is a feed? A feed is simply just a dynamic packet of information that contains product data that we're sending from point A to point B or C or D or E now with more of an omni-channel narrative, right? So that is your title, your description, your price, your inventory, all of the data that a channel like Google Shopping or Amazon needs to see so that they can load your products into their database. And ideally, this isn't just data for data sakes, it's actually optimized in such a way that when I as a consumer go to Google and type something in, let's say I want that, that winter jacket, the more attributes that I type into Google or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, the more information I'm giving that channel for them to match against against your products, right? That you've given them, your product feed. That's the product feed is the way in which channels are matching up your product data with what consumers are searching for and helps everybody have a good experience. And of course, helps you drive revenue. So we don't just want to connect to these channels. Everyone with a developer or two can build APIs into Amazon or Walmart or whatever. We want to be able to modify the data in such a way that it fits that channel's best practices and is optimized for performance, is able to be changed over time as those channels changed. Errors are able to be dealt with. Potentially orders, right? If we're talking native checkout, can be carried back to the systems that you care about, whether that's a fulfillment solution like ShipBob, or whether it's an ERP or an order management system. All of these things, all of these logistics have to be solved for. And if you choose the right partner, a good omni-channel integrator can solve a lot, if not all of those problems for you. All right, so this is a little bit more about us and the approach that we've taken. So this is one potential model that you could think about is kind of who manages this, right? Who it within your teams, because there's lots of different tools you could buy out there that have integrations with different channels. So the way that we've chosen to do it here at Feedonomics is we understand that it's not just about the technology that you purchase and the connections that we have as a platform, right? Like we have, I think, 300 plus now marketplace integrations, and really any comparison shopping channel or paid search channel that you want to go to that takes a feed we can build to because we can customize data so easily. That's a lot of channel integrations. But even if I just gave you our platform, you would have to learn it, manage it, get someone on your team to own it, right? There's a lot of considerations even once you have the right technology. And so the big epiphany for us about 6 years ago was that merchants are busy, retailers are busy, right? You guys have other things to do, and the folks that could understand how to use our platform are generally high-level data analysts, BI data analysts, IT resources, right? They're people that have a lot of stuff on their plate and are not easy to just hire more of. Oh, I'll just go hire 5 more developers, right? Said no one ever. So we realized that if we could solve not just the technology problem, but the service problem, the who is going to use this problem, that would be a really big benefit. So we actually are one of the only omni-channel providers in the entire world that as a modus operandi, we are a managed service. So that means we use our technology to build and manage feeds and marketplace integrations on behalf of our customers. Of course, we collaborate with them because there's a huge conversation around how we use your data, what channels we're pushing to, whether we're filtering those catalogs down or not. But the time savings is massive. And so, it's 50 plus hours for many of our respondents, 40 plus hours for folks that were using a technology platform already. So the 50 plus hours is more like folks that were doing it with IT or were using spreadsheets, like non-specific omnichannel tools. But even for folks that were using specific omnichannel tools, we're still saving almost a full work week every month. That's really significant, right? It's like even if you just wanted to put it in cold hard cash terms, right? 40 hours from a high level BI analyst or an IT person is really significant. This often just pays for itself as far as our charge. Okay, so this is just another way to think about it. There's lots of other things that you can imagine that person that we're saving time from could be doing. And so these are all from our actual customers. They were able to create new product lines, implement different strategies, add more channels, implement new campaigns, etc. You can imagine that for your business and how your person that's currently managing this could be using their time. Or if you're not currently doing this and you're thinking about it, and you right now are just selling on Google Shopping or Amazon, and you're looking to expand across more channels, this might save you a hire, right? And as the economy is on slightly wobblier footing than it was a year ago, that might be really important for your business. I mean, I know obviously we're all reading the headlines, right? Of every other day, some big tech company is doing mass layoffs. This is really important, right? We all got to tighten the belt a little bit. And so if you can save a hire and hire a technology service provider like Feedo, that's really important. You might be the hero of the day if you can find out how to both scale revenue and manage costs. Okay, so in the industry, this is just some comparisons, and I kind of mentioned this, and so I think this is maybe important to go through briefly, is just as far as what your options are when you're choosing stuff. So almost every ecom platform now, whether you're on BigCommerce, Shopify, Magento, anything that is kind of a pre-built in some form e-commerce package, they're going to have some sort of app that allows you to connect to channels. So that's going to be called a feed or a marketplace integration also. So it's important to make a distinction there. Why would you hire an enterprise service provider like Feedo if you have more or less a free app with your ecom platform? So what the free app is doing, we mentioned that anyone can build with those APIs. It's just going to push data as is from one place to another. And the problem with that is A, if that data doesn't match up with that channel's best practices, you're going to get a ton of product errors. B, it's not going to be optimized for performance. So you're kind of stuck with whatever you can get. And C, that app may or may not have all the channels that you want. And certainly no one's going to be there to help you, right? You get what you pay for. And then you can kind of imagine a spectrum from the app all the way on the left to Feedonomics all the way on the right. There's any number of spectrum kind of competitors that you could buy all the way up to Feedo, where um, the free app and no service on one hand to like a mid-level, like maybe you get some onboarding help and it can do some stuff, to full-on enterprise solutions like a channel advisor. Everyone's probably heard of them. Very expensive, millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue every year, probably thousands of channel integrations. But again, self-service at some level. And so that really is kind of our distinction when you look at all the different options in the industry. Is we've just it's a really hard problem to solve, right? Because as a business, it's much easier to build a SaaS product and license it. The profit margins are way higher. There's lots of good things from a business perspective about building a SaaS product. So the service aspect of what we do has been as hard, if not harder, to build than the technology. But it really is what sets us apart, and is something to think about whether you look at Feedonomics or not. As far as like, if I'm going to use an omnichannel provider, who will be doing this? How much time will it take? And do they have the capacity to manage it? Because there are once I think we think a lot about the initial connection as far as when we think about scaling our channels, but who's going to manage the APIs? Who's going to monitor the product errors? Who's going to manage the optimizations? When you have new product lines, who's going to build and make sure those product lines are categorized properly? We have entire teams dedicated to each phase of the feed build process. So onboarding, integration, channel export, error monitoring, and QA. We have 5 separate teams that are looking at different aspects of the feed globally. We've got about 400 employees. So if you think you can replicate that with 1 or 2 employees, it's possible, right? I don't want to tell you you're crazy. Maybe you have a small product catalog. Maybe you don't have that many product lines yet. It's totally possible. There are businesses that do it. So the point of self-reflection here is look at the complexity of your business. If you're built on BigCommerce or Salesforce Commerce Cloud or Shopify, and you want to go to 7 or 8 different channels, and you have a marketing team that's already busy, be rational about what your timing expectations are, and put that into consideration as you're choosing what your strategy is going to be here. Okay, so obviously, this is a bit of a just kind of like where the market stands. G2 is a really nice way to suss out your provider. Obviously, we're really proud of ourselves when it comes to our G2 ranking, but I really like G2 as a almost like the Glassdoor of business reviews. So I'd highly recommend that you check this out when you're choosing a provider. They're really good at ranking not just satisfaction, which is cool, but also market penetration. So this tells you, like Channel Advisor, for example, has been around forever. Insane market penetration, right? Probably the best in the business. They're the highest up and to the left, but their satisfaction at this point isn't great. And so those are things to consider as you're choosing tools. All right, so let's actually get into some of the more nuts and bolts. I think we've got about 10 minutes left of what omnichannel looks like and some of the considerations from a technology perspective. I think you all get the point on the service and the time management perspective. So when we think about omnichannel, first and foremost is identifying where your source data is going to live. Feedonomics as an omnichannel provider is actually not the source of your data. So on the left-hand side, the far left of this chart that you're seeing are all different potential data sources. So a PIM, for those of you who don't know, product information management system, you can imagine this as like a cloud-based database that stores all your product information, whether or not those products are live, in stock, whatever. This is a place where you can store and organize your product info. An order management system does the same for your orders once orders are placed on marketplaces. ERP is a gigantic enterprise system that manages everything from product to inventory and pricing to potentially like financing and accounting data. And then, of course, your e-com platform we're all familiar with. All of those are possible sources of truth that Feedonomics would ingest in a variety of formats, really any format that you need, to build that optimized product feed that we've been talking about, and then pushing it off to the relevant channels. From there, some of these channels are going to be advertising channels, right? Click redirect back to your website. And some of them are going to be marketplaces. With the marketplaces, anything that has a native checkout, there's going to be an order management component to that as well. And so Feedonomics is also going to want to grab those orders and sync those back to the system of record. So it's kind of the reverse flow. And we can actually modify and transform the order data as well to make sure that that matches up with the system. So that's the final piece, is that orders are generated in the format that the channel chooses, not that's necessarily that your engineers or systems managers choose. And so Feedonomics can help with transforming some of that order data. And it's very technical stuff, right? It's something like the date of the order might be at the front of the order as opposed to at the end, and your system needs it to be at the end. So we can move stuff like that around. I won't get into too much of the details. The point there is order data needs to be modified also, and we can help. So that's another thing for you guys to think about as you're mapping out the workflows for yourself. And then, of course, where fulfillment comes into this, and technologies like ShipBob, is really there's kind of like another spoke to this, right? So as Feedonomics is carrying that order back to your systems here, ideally you want to choose a shipping provider that integrates well into the stack. So as that order is placed, they're either pulling the order in directly from the marketplace themselves and generating those shipping labels and tracking information for you, or they're connected to your end systems so you can efficiently ingest that order, get your shipping labels, send stuff off. And so we don't include that only because it's not necessary for us to talk about from a feed perspective. But obviously your shipping partner has to be good, or you're not going to be able to fulfill things on time, get your packages out to where you need, and your ratings on these channels are going to suffer, right? So super important to get that piece down. It just sort of sits tangentially to Feedonomics, so that's why you're not seeing that in this picture.
Hey, Colin, I kind of want to jump in here. We're just about at time here.
Okay.
But wanted to jump in. A couple of things that you called out on the call that I was hoping you could kind of touch on before we need to wrap up here is you talked about optimizing across a variety of channels. So you're talking about search terms, things like that being optimized to be found. Are you seeing, kind of based on the data that you've seen historically, folks that are maybe appearing higher in the Google shopping results, things along those lines, because they're optimized and you're driving more sales from Google
Absolutely.
shopping directly to the website? Or are you seeing most people say, oh, great, I see this in my shopping trend, but I'm going to go to the direct consumer's website to complete that purchase process?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the short answer is, generally speaking, what we like to say is optimized feeds perform better. And so I think, to your first point, the more optimized data you have, folks are clicking on those ads, right? I mean,
Right.
we're generally seeing anywhere from like 10 to 15% uptick to, folks sometimes deliver us absolutely just like shambles data, and once we piece it together, we've seen like multiple hundreds of percent uptick. So it's hard to like guarantee a number when someone's coming to us. But yeah, I mean, it's massive. Like, it's one of the primary ways that Google figures out where it should rank your products when someone does a search.
That's awesome. That's great to know. Well, Colin, we really appreciate the time and appreciate overview of
Sure.
Feedonomics and how to optimize across various marketplaces and various channels. As Colin mentioned, you're seeing a big uptick in impressions, click rates, and then with saving a week of work time a month. I mean, that's absolutely incredible to be able to focus and optimize other aspects of your business. So, Colin,
Yeah.
really appreciate the time. And I'm also in Denver, so I'll shoot you a note. We'll have to grab
Oh,
lunch.
awesome, Tom. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great holiday season, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Bye, guys.